Moving down. Zoom Master, you got the word then? We will record their speeches. Disqualifications. You can be disqualified for any of the following 4 reasons. You're not present. You are all present. 2, your speech is timed under the minimum qualifying time or over the maximum time if you go over or under. 3, you are ineligible. The ineligibility requirements listed in the speech certification forms for international speeches. If your speech violates these rules for originality, and you have to, for international speech, 25% or less of the speech may be devoted to quoting, paraphrasing, or referencing another person's content. Are there any questions about disqualifications?
Yes, could you run one more time past the times required on the international? This is a change from what I've done for many years, and I'm uncomfortable with my speech fitting into the limits the way it is right now.
Hold, please. We have an update on the timing requirements from Steve Sokolovsky. The timing, he says, is 5 to 7 minutes. The contestants for international can be plus minus 30 seconds. If the speech is 4 minutes and 30 seconds or 7 minutes and 31 seconds.
Thank you for that clarification, Carly.
Thank you.
Does
You understand,
that all make sense?
That does make sense.
Okay.
Carly, this is Jing. Let me just read it verbatim from the rule book for the sake of the contestants. All speeches delivered by contestants must conform to the timing guidelines for the contest. International speeches must be from 5 to 7 minutes. A contestant will be disqualified if the speech is less than 4 minutes, 30 seconds, or more than 7 minutes, 30 seconds. Timers must not consider fractions of a second. A contestant is not qualified until their time reaches 4 minutes and 30 seconds and is not disqualified until their time reaches 7 minutes and 31 seconds. Table topics contest speeches must be from 1 minute to 2 minutes. A contestant will be disqualified if the speech is less than 1 minute or more than 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Timers must not consider fractions of a second. A contestant is not qualified until their time reaches 1 minute and is not disqualified until their time reaches 2 minutes and 31 seconds. I hope this clarifies the timing requirement.
Thank you, Toastmaster.
We will continue with the briefing, but I would like to notify Steve Sokolovsky that we have a volunteer who is somehow stuck outside of the room. I will send you a chat. Please continue with the briefing.
Will do. Thank you, Toastmaster Carrie. Carly.
Thank you.
Last section. Protests. You can be protested based on eligibility. Only voting judges and contestants can lodge an eligibility protest. The protests must be lodged with me and or the contest chair prior to the announcement of the winner and alternate. The contest chair will make the ruling. If you are in the international speech contest, you can also be protested based on originality, as I mentioned earlier. Only the voting judges and contestants can lodge an originality protest. And the chief judge will give the opportunity to respond to the voting judges if this were to occur. Any questions on protests? This covers all the information for the briefing. Do you have any questions? If not, this concludes the briefing. Thank you and good luck. Back to you, Carly.
The chief judge and I have confirmed the eligibility of the contestants and judges. The first and second place contest winners in each area will advance to the division competition. These proceedings are designed to ensure that we run a fair contest and that each contestant is given a level playing field on which to compete. The following announcements are made in the interest of having a distraction-free environment for our contestants. Please place all cell phones or other devices that make audible noises either off or on silent. This includes pets. Yes, in the event that you have a pet that might get enthusiastic and walk all over your keyboard or knock something over, just make sure that they're outside the room, or that you know that they'll remain silent for the duration. Be sure to mute yourself unless you are speaking. Please do not type in the chat room while the contestants are speaking. This is distracting. No photography of the contestants is allowed during contestant speeches. This would be a little bit harder, being that we are in a virtual environment, but that also adheres to taking random screenshots and saving them or anything that would be equivalent. So please put away all cameras, smartphones, tablets, and devices that can take pictures. Once the contest has begun, members of the audience are asked to refrain from leaving or re-entering the Zoom room. If you must leave, please do so during times of silence between contestant evaluations. The Zoom master will not allow anyone to enter the room during a contestant's speech. This also applies to what I stated earlier. If you are watching the contest as an audience member, please make sure that you are not engaging in any behavior if you're on camera that would prove distracting to the speaker. I will now ask if there are any questions from the contestants or the officials before we get started. And I have a question first, and that question is directed at Steve. Do we have everyone readmitted to the room that is serving in the volunteer role?
Yes.
I will also request that the volunteer, come back, Zoom, sorry. I would also request that if the volunteer is still having any issues, to please message me directly in the chat or via email. I am going to proceed at this time if I don't receive any additional acknowledgement that everyone is. One more thing. I have received another message regarding the timer. And the question is from Jing. Are we able to test timer 2? I believe that we have been able to successfully test timer 2. And which timer is showing the color cards? I believe that both timers are showing the color cards. I do not want to verbally.
Carly,
Yes, go ahead.
Timer 1 will show the color cards.
Mhm.
If for some reason timer 1 drops off due to technical issues, then timer 2 will show color cards.
Okay, then just for clarification purposes for all involved, timer number 2 will then not show color cards unless timer 1 drops off. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we please test the color cards from timer 1? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions, need for clarifications or concerns before we proceed? Going once, going twice? Okay. The Area 23 contest will now take place, starting with table topics, followed by a 2-minute pause to transition to the international speech contest for Area 23. We have one contestant for both, Jim Anglin. Remember, there will be 1 minute of silence between contestants during which judges will mark their ballots. After all contestants have spoken, the judges will be given all the time they need to complete their ballots. Are the timers ready?
Yes.
Table topics, contestant Jim Anglin. Have you pinned the timer? Jim, I cannot hear your audio.
Found it.
Have you pinned the timer?
Yes, I can see the timer screen to the right.
Are your audio and video fine?
I believe so.
Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 1, Jim Anglin. Do you think we're alone in the universe? Do you think we're alone in the universe? Contestant 1, Jim Anglin.
Madam Contest Chair and fellow Toastmasters, are we alone in the universe? I think, for all intents and purposes, the answer is yes. In terms of being able to be aware or communicate with potential other beings in the universe, I don't see much way that's ever going to happen. Perhaps there are unknown signals that come from unknown sources that reach us somehow, but being able to identify anything about these, where, when those signals may have originated, who knows? So I think for all practical purposes, we are essentially alone. We have lots of other bodies out there, and there are certainly planets that could be considered to be of suitable temperatures and atmospheric conditions that life might occur. Those are hard to discern, even with the best of telescopes. But I would suggest that the likelihood that there are UFOs that have some sort of intelligent beings on them being out there, all of the things that we wonder about in New Mexico and so on, I really don't think that any of those have any real value. There's likely to be an explanation somehow, even if we aren't able to come up with one. Bottom line, from my perspective, is yes, we are alone. Could there be some spiritual being out there? I think that's perhaps debatable, but in terms of an actual physical presence of some sort, I would say no. I don't think that there's anyone else out there. We can consider ourselves to be alone. Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jim. In order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence, followed by a 2nd minute for the judges to provide their results to the ballot counter. In the meantime, contestant Jim, please prepare for the international speech contest immediately following. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 2 minutes have elapsed?
Okay.
We've got some people joining us today. Excellent. While I'm waiting for the timer to confirm that 2 minutes has passed, I would like to welcome an attendee that just joined, Barbara Grignano. I apologize if that's not the correct pronunciation, but welcome. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today, and I hope that you're feeling better.
Carly, I apologize. We have to have a moment of silence for the judges.
Madam Contest Chair, 2 minutes is up.
Thank you, timer 1. The Area 23 International Speech Contest will now take place. It consists of a series of timed 5 to 7 minute speeches that will be judged by the panel of judges. There is only one contestant today from Area 23. He will be introduced only by his name and the title of the speech. I will then repeat the title of the speech. I will then repeat the title of the speech and the contestant's name. Contestant Jim Anglin, have you pinned the timer?
Let's see, I'm not seeing the screen that I had for the table topics yet.
That is correct. There it is.
There we go. Looks good.
Excellent. And I will repeat the question. Contestant Jim, have you pinned the timer?
Yes.
Are your audio and video fine?
They seem to be.
Are you ready to begin?
Yes, let's begin.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 1, Jim Anglin. Pittsburgh weather, benign. Pittsburgh weather, benign. Contestant number 1, Jim Anglin.
Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters. When you exit that Fort Pitt Tunnel, whether it's for the first time or whether you are a longtime resident of the area, you are given the chance to see a wonderful panorama. You see the skyscrapers downtown, you see the rivers, you see the sports stadia over across on the north side. It's amazing stuff. Now, some 59 days a year, which is the typical number of days of clear sunshine in Pittsburgh, it's a picture perfect postcard type of view. Another 102 days, give or take each year, you have partial sunshine, and so still it's quite impressive. The remaining days, and that amounts to about 4 days per week, you have clouds, fog, rain, snow, what have you. Still impressive, but maybe not that postcard type of beauty. Now, the fact that you have that much cloudy weather, it's typical of Pittsburgh. The rest of the country, much of it has more sunshine than we do, but the Northeast or the Pacific Northwest tend to have days with similar amounts of sunshine as we have. Now, our weather, I think, is relatively moderate, typical of a city that might be considered the most livable city. Precipitation and temperatures are quite reasonable, unless you hate winter weather and want to move elsewhere. But Pittsburgh weather, I think, is pretty benign. Consider, for example, some other parts of the country where vacations may happen sometimes of year. The northern tier of states, often sub-zero blizzard conditions, not for the folks that aren't hardy. And then in the south, the desert Southwest with its extreme temperatures, or around the Gulf Coast, hot, humid. Quite difficult weather to go out and enjoy a tennis match in. When it comes to storms, consider some other areas. For example, that same area in the south. Hurricanes can come in during about half of the year, causing death and destruction, flooding. That Gulf Coast area, it's like Russian roulette. Each year it can happen in any given spot. And that danger extends up the East Coast a good bit as well. That East Coast can also have severe weather in the way of nor'easters, even into the wintertime with snow as well as rain. Much of the country, too, has tornadoes. They're, of course, most numerous and most severe in the southern plains, but fortunately, as you go farther north and farther east, they become less frequent, less severe for the most part. And so Pittsburgh is out of the target of those most of the time. Finally, what about snow? Certain areas of the country, not too far from here, some of them have significant amounts of snow. The opportunity for several feet at a time near Buffalo or Syracuse, or out west when storms come in from the Pacific and dump snow in the higher elevations. So when you exit those Fort Pitt tunnels, chances are you're not going to see anything so severe. Pretty benign for the most part. But that's not to say that Pittsburgh weather can't be interesting. Indeed, a temperature of minus 22 has been recorded as recently as 1988. 103 degrees F has been recorded also in that same general time frame, most recently, out of the 3 times it's happened. When it comes to storms, well, hurricanes can have their impact in Pittsburgh, although at a much diminished level. 2004 in September brought us quite interesting weather. For example, Francis came north up into the Ohio Valley area and lingered here, seemed to like the area, dropping over the course of a day a record 3.6 inches of rain. Amazingly, some 9 days later that same month, Ivan came along and stayed even longer, dumping almost 6 inches of rain. And that record still stands. Quite an impressive amount. Although not as much in total as happened one year, 1945, in that September month. Curious indeed. When it comes to tornadoes, we're not totally out of the woods. Some severe weather came east out of Ohio on one occasion around Memorial Day of 1986, and several tornadoes reached western Pennsylvania and caused significant damage. And so there's a slight chance with tornadoes. Then when it comes to snowfall, yes, those meteorological gods occasionally convene and decide it's Pittsburgh's turn. And so as Thanksgiving approached in 1950, over the course of a couple of days, the biggest ever storm in Pittsburgh, 27.3 inches. And I'm sure the kids were thrilled, if not too many others were. Our kids had a chance to be thrilled with my driving in the biggest snowstorm ever for one day in Pittsburgh in 1993, just before St. Patrick's Day. And so, yes, snow is out there too. Toastmasters, when you exit those Fort Pitt tunnels, there are certainly some possibilities for some unusual and interesting weather. But I think for the most part, it's pretty benign, and it's indicative of a place that can be a very livable city. Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jim. In order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence, followed by a 2nd minute for the judges to provide their results to the ballot counter. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 2 minutes have elapsed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Contest Chair, 2 minutes have elapsed.
Thank you, timer 1. The Area 22 contest will now take place, starting with table topics, followed by a 5-minute break. Then the international speech contest will commence. The chief judge and I had conducted the random drawing to determine the speaking order for both sets of contests today. Here is the lineup. For the Area 22 Table Topics contest, contestant number 1 is Sterling Garcia. Contestant number 2 is Patty Thor. Contestant number 3 is Dan Murdis. Contestant number 4 is Michael Stewart. Contestant number 5 is Natalie Kapustik. For the Area 22 International Speech Contest, contestant number 1 is Bill Goff. Contestant number 2 is Michael Stewart. Contestant number 3 is Patty Thor. Zoom Master, please assist placing the Sergeant of Arms and the Table Topics contestants in the breakout room. Contestant number 1, Sterling, please remain here. Remember, there will be 1 minute of silence between contestants, during which judges will mark their ballots. After all contestants have spoken, the judges will be given all the time they need to complete their ballots. I see that the contestants are being moved.
Patty is still in the room. She needs to leave.
Okay. All contestants that are not currently speaking in the Table Topics contest must be moved to the breakout room. I will not proceed further until we make sure that everyone has been moved.
Yes.
You can confirm now that they've been moved.
I will now confirm that all contestants that are not participating in the Table Topics contest have been moved to the breakout room where they will be held until their turn in the speaking order arrives. I will now ask, are the timers ready?
Yes.
Yes.
I need the contestant to be spotlighted. Thank you. Contestant number 1, Sterling. Have you pinned the timer?
Yes, I can see the timer.
Are your audio and video fine?
Yes, Madam Contest Chair.
Are you ready to begin?
Yes, ma'am.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant 1, Sterling Garcia. If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? Contestant number 1, Sterling Garcia.
Madam Contest Chair, judges, fellow Toastmasters and guests. If I could live at any point in time in history, where would it be and why? Such an interesting question, because I might answer that question in a very different way if I were a younger person or an older person. When I was younger, I always thought to myself, boy, it would be really great to travel into the future and see what life might be like in 2030, 2040, 2050, and see if it's changed from the time that I'm at currently. As an older person now, I think to myself in a more logical way or more noble way, having experienced different things in my life. And so the way I would answer the question today is to say, I would love to live at a point in time where something historical happened. And as a former Marine and a veteran of the US Armed Forces, I think it would have been really great to live at the time when World War II happened, because so much happened during that time, and to be able to nobly serve during that time and to serve my country when they really needed me to serve would have been the honor of my life. So in conclusion, perhaps I'd like to visit the future, but perhaps I'd like to visit a very important time in our past. And I think World War II is a really important time. I would have loved to contribute and serve my country during that time. Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sterling. In order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed?
Yes. Madam Contest Chair, 1 minute has elapsed.
Thank you, Timer 1. We will now move on to our second contestant. Contestant number 2, Patty Thor. Have you pinned the timer?
Patty is not in the room yet.
I invited her to the main session, but she hasn't joined. There she comes.
We will wait until she has joined the room, and then I will restart my questions.
She has entered the room.
Thank you very much.
Is my audio okay?
It just sounded a little garbled to me, but that could be my internet. Please test it out again.
Is my 1, 2, 3, 4 testing 1, 2, 3, 4?
That sounds fine to me. Is anyone else having, if anyone is having issues hearing Patty speaking, please notify me in the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to proceed and we will check it again when I get to the question about the audio. Contestant number 2, Patty Thor. Have you pinned the timer?
I can see the timer.
Are your audio and video fine?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Is it good?
Yes, you're coming through clear.
Okay.
Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 2, Patty Thor. If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? Contestant number 2, Patty Thor.
If I could choose to live in any time period, what would I choose? Wow, there's so many interesting things in history that I would love to see and maybe go back in time. But then I look at their daily lives and I think, oh, do I want to spend all day preparing meat or cooking or washing my clothes in a river on rocks? I think, maybe not so much. But well, the 50s were really a lot of fun. That was an era in the United States that was booming economy. They were coming up with all kinds of fun new technologies. So that would be interesting to live in. And I was born right at the end of the 50s, so I didn't really get to experience them. Now, the 70s were a lot of fun. I love the music. They have disco music, which was fun for me. But honestly, if I were to still live in any time zone or time frame in this earth, I would still choose right now in America right now. In spite of all the frustrations and turmoil that's going on, because I feel like I'm here, and as a Toastmaster, we can actually help bring peace through communication. We can actually bring more to this earth and bring more to this planet through this communication that we're learning about. And I would love the opportunity, I do in fact love the opportunity to help teach others how to not be afraid and to voice their opinions. Now, that's helped so many people that I've seen in the past where they've been so shy to even say their name when they come to a meeting. But in a few weeks, they are outspoken and they're confident. And boy, I love to see that. So I would have to say I would choose right here, right now in America for me to live. Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Patty Thor. In order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed?
Well.
Thank you very much.
Madam Contest Chair, 1 minute has elapsed.
Thank you, timer 1. We will now move on to our third contestant. Contestant number 3, Dan Murtis. Have you pinned the timer? Contestant number 3, Dan Murtis, have you pinned the timer?
Dan is muted yet, and he walked away.
Please accept my apology for the technical difficulties. I think you should be able to hear me now.
Contestant number 3, Dan Murtis, have you pinned the timer?
Yes, Madam Contest Chair, I have pinned the timer.
Are your audio and video fine?
Yes, I believe they are.
Are you ready to begin?
Yes, I am.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 3, Dan Murtis. If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? Contestant number 3, Dan Murtis.
Well, thank you, Madam Contest Chair, for that question. I am tempted to say I would want to live in the same time period that Doc chose in Back to the Future. Wouldn't the Wild West be a fun, a little bit dangerous, but a fun period in which to live? But when I think about it, you know what? I'm a physicist, and physicists have figured out a lot more things between then and now. And so, in the end, I think now is the period I would choose in which to live. We have the standard model of particle physics, which is pretty much close to complete. Maybe that's the final answer in particle physics, maybe it isn't. There's also the standard model of cosmology at large. Not quite so figured out, but pretty good. And I have the honor and privilege of working on a unfunded, unfortunately, research project concerning the standard model of cosmology. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was living back in the Old West. So I have to put the Old West as number 2, and I would just as soon live in the current period. Thank you, Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Dan Murtis. Again, in order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed?
Yes.
Thank you, timer number 1.
Madam Contest Chair, 1 minute has elapsed.
Thank you, timer number one.
Dan, never mind, I was just gonna say mute your mic. Thank you.
We will now move on to our fourth contestant. Contestant number 4, Michael Stewart. Have you pinned the timer?
I have.
Are your audio and video fine?
Yes, they are.
Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 4, Michael Stewart. If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? Contestant number 4, Michael Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Contest Chair. If I could choose to live in any time period, I would choose to live in the current time period. I know that's kind of a lame answer, but hear me out. Living in a previous time period, something older, I feel that I would long for the many amenities that we have in current day society, such as the internet, electricity, and my profession, programming. Going back into a older time period just wouldn't feel right to me. And the same can be said for going into a future time period. The future is full of unknowns, and therefore I would have no way to prepare myself. So based on that lack of information, I would live in the current time period. Thank you, Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Michael Stewart. Again, in order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed?
I will.
Thank you, timer number 1.
Madam Contest Chair, 1 minute has elapsed.
Thank you, timer number 1. We will now proceed to our 5th contestant. Contestant number 5, Natalie Kapustik. Have you pinned the timer?
No, but I can see them.
Are your audio and video fine?
Yes.
Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 5, Natalie Kapustik. If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? If you could choose to live in any time period, which would it be? Contestant number 5, Natalie Kapustik.
Thank you, Madam Contest Chair and fellow Toastmasters. If I could choose to live in any time period, when would it be? The first thing that came to mind would be living in the future, living 50 or 100 years from now, if our planet is still viable for life. I'm really curious to see what technology would be in the future. There's been so many advancements just in the past 50 and 70 years. And I would like to be around to see what the next 50 and 100 years would look like. I'm really curious to see what space travel would look like in the future, and also just everyday technology. I think it's amazing what we can do with cell phones and iPads. We have so much power just in the palm of our hand, and I'm curious to see how that would expand in years to come. I'd also really like to see what vehicles would look like in the future. Tesla is one company that's done some pretty interesting technology, but I think that there's even better options with different fuel. And I'd like to see what that would look like. Thank you, Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Natalie. Again, in order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed?
Yes. Madam Contest Chair, 1 minute has elapsed.
Thank you, timer number 1. We will now have a 5-minute break. So please take this time to stretch your arms, stretch your legs, and get ready for the Area 22 International Speech Contest coming soon your way. And we'll see you soon. while we're taking our break, we will be providing a slideshow. The slideshow will have some important reminders on it about upcoming club contests, an overview of all of the Toastmasters events, past and future, that will be going on for District 13. And so please feel free to review it and mark your calendars for upcoming events in the district and beyond. Thank you, timer one. So the 5 minutes has elapsed. And before we get into the next phase of our contest, I will just check in with all of my volunteers And just ask, are we good to continue? Is any more time required for tabulation? Just let me know in the chat. And if
Carly, we are
Okay.
good. Carly, we are good. You can
we are
proceed.
good. Okay, thank you very much. And let's get going to the next part of this contest. I'm pretty excited. Welcome back. If you used your cell phone during the break, please ensure that it is now off or in silent mode. I'm sure you have phenomenal ringtones, but we don't need to hear them. The Area 22 International Speech Contest will consist of a series of timed 5 to 7 minute speeches that will be judged by a panel of judges. There are 3 Area 22 contestants today. They will be introduced only by their name and the title of the speech. I will then repeat the title of the speech and the contestant's name. Contestant number 1. One moment, please. Okay. Contestant number 1, Bill Goff. Contestant number 2, Michael Stewart. Contestant number 3, Patty Thor. We will now proceed to contestant number 1, Bill Goff. Have you pinned the timer?
I have not. I actually don't have the option to pin the timer. Let me try that now. Still not getting the option to pin the timer, but I can see the timer screen quite well.
Are we able to proceed as long as he's able to see it?
Yes, he can see it. We can proceed.
Okay. We had another contestant who was not able to see to pin it, but they were able to see it. I will proceed, given that he has visual on the timer. Are your audio and video fine?
Yes, they are.
Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 1, Bill Goff. A surprising lesson. A surprising lesson. Contestant number 1, Bill Goff.
Madam Contest Chair and fellow Toastmasters, the death of a loved one is undeniably hard. Just about all of us have been there and shared that pain. It's probably the most difficult thing we can go through. And how can we make sense of such events? Of course, there are many faiths that offer solace, comfort, and understanding. I'd like to offer a bit of insight that came with the death of my father in 2019. My dad was born in 1924, shortly before the start of the Great Depression. He grew up in a small town in rural Oklahoma. He told many stories about his youth, riding his bike, working in local parks, playing basketball. Like many men his age, he served in the Second World War. In fact, of his high school, only one of the many men in his class did not serve. In my dad's case, he was a navigator in a heavy bomber. At age 21, he was navigating the plane across the North Atlantic, and shortly thereafter, taking part in combat missions over Nazi-occupied Europe. One mission went to Berlin, and another had the planes returned with holes in them from enemy fire. He told stories about, in the officers' quarters, seeing empty beds at night for those who didn't come back and wondering what had happened to them. Were they dead? were they captured? The odds are about 50-50. A high point might have been meeting the actor Jimmy Stewart. As you might know, he served in World War II. It turned out he commanded the squadron my father flew in, and Dad got to meet him. He did say in person he spoke a lot like he did in the movies. After the war in Europe ended, he's back in the United States for further training with an expectation he was going to the Pacific for more fighting. While he was here in the US, victory over Japan was declared, and he described the resulting mayhem at the base. You might even call it a joyous riot. After a bit of time adjusting back to civilian life, he got a degree in geology from the University of Oklahoma. When working in Western Nebraska in the early 1950s, he met my mom. They married after 5 weeks, and I came along some years later. Before then, they spent 2 years living in North Africa in Libya, where we had to do long treks out in the Sahara looking for oil based upon the surface geology and geophysics. When my dad wasn't working, my parents had traveled quite a bit, including to Italy, which is quite nearby. On their return to the States, they moved to Tyler, Texas, where I was born. That caused some consternation for my dad. Being from Oklahoma and Okie, there's quite a bit of rivalry between the states, but eventually he got used to it. And over the years, we lived in other places where oil was found: Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Wyoming. I was off to college then. They made a final move back to Oklahoma. Dad worked for a smaller company, still a Fortune 1000 company, and he's a VP for them. That was actually one of his lifelong goals. My dad lived a typical life for a man born in the early 20th century. He served in World War II, took part in the post-war boom that lifted all boats. He and Mom had many happy years together. They had a rich social life and a very full retirement. But as years went by, time took its toll, as it does in all of us. When my dad's in his early 90s, he moved to be near my sister in Michigan. And with his body wearing out, he died a few days before what would have been his 95th birthday. How do I remember him? Certainly by the stories he told. He was an honest, kind, generous, and affable role model who lived a full and exciting life. When he died, as is a customary world today, I posted on social media about it. And many people complimented me, and the condolences flowed in. A frequent comment was they saw my dad's traits in me. At first, I was pleased. How could I not be? People were saying kind things about me. On second thought, I was almost a bit upset because this is supposed to be about my dad, not about me. My third thought, though, was this: that the values and traits that he and my mom valued could be seen in me, and that's what my friends were seeing in me today. In short, the things my parents valued came to me. So how could I have missed this? How could I have not seen this sort of thing? In a very real way, that if parted aren't totally gone, they live on in us. This was the parting thing I learned from my dad, Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Bill. Thank you, Toastmaster Bill. In order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed?
Yes.
Thank you, Timer 1.
Madam Contest Chair, 1 minute has elapsed.
Thank you, timer 1. We will now move on to our second contestant. Contestant number 2, Michael Stewart. Have you pinned the timer?
No, but I can see the timer.
He's confirmed that he can see the timer. I will move on to the next question. Are your audio and video fine?
Yes, they are.
Are you ready to begin?
I am.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 2, Michael Stewart. Revising while running. Revising while running. Contestant number 2, Michael Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Contest Chair. Fellow Toastmasters, if you know me, you would know that I am a rather rigid person. I like to make plans and then execute those plans with a high level of precision. But as time goes on, I'm beginning to realize that there are scenarios where you can't plan things out note for note. And in fact, there are certain situations where not planning things out note for note makes the end result better. And I feel that a perfect illustration of this would be the D&D campaign that I recently ran. For those of you who are unaware, D&D, or Dungeons and Dragons, is a tabletop role-playing game. In a D&D campaign, you have the Dungeon Master, or DM, who can be thought of as the referee and storyteller for the game. In addition to the DM, you also have the players, generally a party of 5 or so people who create characters, form an adventuring party, and then interact with the story being told by the DM. Since I was running this campaign, which is a fancy way of saying I was the DM of it, I was responsible for coming up with the story that the players would be playing through. Since I decided to tell an original story rather than use one of the pre-published stories that D&D comes with, I had a lot of work ahead of me. So I got to work planning out my story. Since the players had made it clear that they wanted to play evil characters, I thought a plot centered around assassinations and heists would fit very well. The party would be tasked with infiltrating the remote island of a billionaire who has amassed a large collection of exotic animals. And once infiltrated the island, they would need to covertly poach the animals while capturing the rarest animal alive for sale on the black market when they returned. Fortunately, while this individual, known only as the Collector, island was generally closed off to the public, he was hosting an event where he was inviting the wealthiest members of society to spend a week on his island, eating lavish food, drinking fine wine, and of course, admiring his collection. There was also a rumor that at the end of the week, he would unveil the latest addition to his collection, the rarest animal he has found to date. With the general plot in place, I began to drill into the particulars of the story. Since I had envisioned a story of somewhat resembling a heist, I had expected the party to spend a lot of time towards the beginning of the campaign gathering information. So I had to make sure that that information was available to be gathered. What times were guards at each of the animal enclosures? How many guards were in each patrol? What were the relationships between the noble families visiting the island? What were their coat of arms? What industries did the nobles work in? I had to come up with answers for all of these questions so that the world would feel flushed out and full, and the party could gather this information while planning this heist. And while I have answers to all of these questions, I can assure you that the party does not have the answers to these questions. After the first major session, I realized that the story that I was trying to plan out and execute note for note was impossible. The narrative of the party masquerading as one of the noble families to infiltrate the island and then covertly poaching the creatures after using espionage to learn the guards' patrol schedule fell apart before my very eyes. In our first section, the party walked into a tavern where two of the nobles were staying and took zero effort to conceal their identities. Once in the tavern, they then approached the nobles and began to shake them down, which ultimately ended up with a confrontation with the city guards, the party covered in blood, and their faces plastered across the city as wanted posters were erected. So much for the stealth-based narrative I had planned out. But at that point, it was too late to go back to the drawing board. I'd already tasked the party with their plan, and they had already taken steps, although not the steps I had planned them to take, towards completing the goal. Instead of railroading them into playing the campaign, as I had initially thought of it, I allowed them to just interact with the world. I'd already put a lot of thought into who the individuals were in this fantasy world and their backstories. And with that, I was able to determine how they would react to the party's interactions on the fly, even if those interactions were unplanned. I was able to see how the party interacted with the world and then carry those interactions into the next session. I was able to emphasize the parts of the story they were enjoying while minimizing the parts of the story that they did not enjoy. I was able to revise the campaign while running it. And because of that, the campaign was more enjoyable for the players. So, my fellow Toastmasters, next time you find yourself in a situation where things aren't going according to plan and it's too late to go back to the drawing board, try revising while running. Thank you, Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Michael Stewart. Again, in order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed? Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed?
Yes.
Thank you, Timer 1.
Madam Contest Chair, 1 minute has elapsed.
Thank you, Timer number 1. We will now move on to our third contestant. Contestant number 3, Patty Thor. Have you pinned the timer?
Yes, Madam Contest Chair.
Are your audio and video fine?
Is my audio acceptable?
Yes. I will confirm that your audio is acceptable and that I can hear you loud and clear. Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
We are ready to proceed. Contestant number 3, Patty Thor. Guidance. Guidance. Contestant number 3, Patty Thor.
Ouch, that's my foot. Oh, the wall. Oh. Dear, I know that you love me, and I know that, well, until you get better at leading and I get better at following, maybe we ought to just dance with the professionals. Yes, sir? Wow, this is so much easier. His frame is firm, and his cues are subtle, but I can feel where he wants me to go. Wow, it's such a difference dancing with an experienced dancer, a professional who knows what they're doing. Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, have any of you besides me ever tried ballroom dancing? Have any of you ever done any dance moves on the dance floor? Have you ever seen a floor? My husband and I started learning ballroom dancing when we were engaged. We wanted to be able to dance the waltz for our first dance after our wedding. Boy, it can be challenging learning to work together. Certainly, it builds intimacy when you work through those struggles. But, oh, the frustration, the pain. Yeah, it's not always easy, but it does build a partnership. And sometimes that frustration was just so much that I just continue to go for walks. Let's not even do the dance anymore. So my husband and I would go for walks regularly. But I realized that walking together meant we're side by side, maybe sometimes holding hands or arm in arm, headed the same direction, seeing more or less the same things. But that a walk was always destination oriented. Because even if you go out for a leisurely walk, eventually your destination is to get back home. But dance is heart to heart, face to face. It's relationship oriented. It's about learning the subtle moves of each other and building that partnership. Well, my husband and I didn't give up on dance completely. In fact, just recently, he ordered a DVD. It's called Show Her Off. Maybe some of you have seen that ad on Facebook. Well, this is a fantastic video. It's actually meant to learn to dance in your living room, but you can take it out on the dance floor at different events. The instructor was very detailed about the kind of cues that he would give to the lead. And the lead is typically the man in the dance. But he would say, put your hand here on her back, put your other hand here. Now she has power steering, so you don't have to push real hard. Just give her a little gentle nudge, a little tug this way and a little push that way, and she'll start to spin. Now make sure you catch her. Make sure you're watching out what's going on around the floor around her, so you're not running into other dancers or into obstacles. Yeah, I appreciated that. They hurt. Now, my husband, in the few weeks that we've been practicing this, has gotten much better. And I've gotten more sensitive to his cues as well. That partnership is building. We've been able to do some spins and some dips. Yeah, I can tell you this, And the instructor says this, when you do the dip, she gets the smile every time. Just so you know that, you might want to go out and order one of those. Now, the fun thing is and you're dancing, the man is taking the lead and he's watching out for everything. He sees what's coming. Now, the female has the follower, not so much, which is a little bit unnerving. Well, not a little bit, a lot, until your man gets some good practice under his belt. But boy, once he gets that, it's a lot of fun. And what I realized is that in our modern Western worldview, we walk into the future. The past is behind us. But in ancient Greece, guess what? The past is in front of them. They're looking because they can see exactly what happened. And they back into the future, much like when you're dancing and you're the follower. Now, a few years ago, I learned an acronym. It's called guidance. God, you, and I dance. Wow, that makes so much more sense than walking through life with God. Because how many times have you felt like you've spun around and you're back to the same place and it feels confusing? Now, as a walk, that doesn't make sense. But as a dance, it's beautiful. Go out, come back, go out again, come back again. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's so exciting to have a lead that's strong, knows what they're doing. So maybe the ancient Greeks had something right. Maybe it's a good idea to as we're backing into the future, to have a lead who's strong, who's experienced, who sees what's coming. Maybe we should all say, God, you, and I dance. Madam Contest Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Patty Thor. Again, in order to allow the judges time to mark their judging forms, we will have 1 minute of silence. Mr. Timer, will you signal me when 1 minute has elapsed?
I will.
I have an addendum for that instruction. This will actually require more than 1 minute because all contestants have now spoken. I am going to get status on what the appropriate number of minutes would be. Please stand by.
It would be 2 minutes.
Thank you. Please alert me when 2 minutes has elapsed, as opposed to 1 minute.
Will do.
Thank you very much.
Madam Contest Chair, that 2 minutes has elapsed.
Thank you. Timer 1. Will the Sergeant of Arms please move the Chief Judge and ballot counters to the judges' chambers? And please confirm when they have all left the main room. Has the Chief Judge and the ballot counter moved to the judges' chambers?
Not yet.
Sorry, Zoom keeps crashing on me.
Now they're there.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. At this point in the proceedings, we will now begin the Meet the Contestants portion of our contest. So we have the opportunity to talk up our amazing contestants and ask them a couple questions and tell you all a little bit about them. I am going to start with our contestant, Natalie Kapustik. Natalie is from the State College Club, and she is actually the current president of the State College Club. I will now ask Natalie a couple of questions. Contestant Natalie, have you held any other position with the State College Club aside from the president position?
Nope, just the president position.
That's awesome. Starting out very strong there with a very, very critical leadership role. Well, thank you, Natalie, for your service to your club, and also to the area and district by being a great leader. Do you have any interests and hobbies, Natalie, that you'd like to tell us about?
I like to bake and cook. I really enjoy eating sweets and things with sugar. Thankfully, I also like to exercise. I like to run and lift weights and play tennis. So those two things balance each other out.
Awesome. I can definitely tell you, I have a bit of a sweet tooth myself. And sometimes it's a little hard to control it, but I think that that's a problem that is, if not universal, is something we can all kind of come together on and in shared suffering when we try to eat a little less sweets, or maybe a little less carbs, maybe not necessarily sweet, but less carbs. Impossible. Due to the variable amount of time that we might have, I will ask Natalie one more question before we move on. What inspires you the most, Natalie? If you can share that with us.
What inspires me the most is just living up to my personal potential and trying to do my best and always improve. That's part of the reason why I joined Toastmasters. I gave a speech at my job that was not great, and I really wanted to do better. Thanks.
Thank you so much, contestant Natalie. Let's move on to our next contestant, Dan Murtis. Dan, is it correct that you are currently living in Virginia these days?
Yes, Madam Contest Chair, I'm living in Harrisonburg, Virginia,
Mhm.
in the Shenandoah Valley.
And you've held quite a few offices over the year, Dan. What office are you currently holding in Toastmasters?
Well, I am the secretary of Whitney Toastmasters at the moment.
Fun fact, that's actually my club of origin, but of at least 2 clubs to my knowledge. He's a member of the State College Club and a member of Whitney Toastmasters.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about of your favorite interests, Dan, or hobbies?
I've always been interested in fishing. There was a time when I was much younger that I would have said that's the thing I most wanted to do. I haven't done very much fishing lately. Now that I'm retired, maybe I've started to fish some, but not enough to count it as my main hobby. I would say I like to walk and be out in nature. I used to be an avid runner, but my knee is the point where I can't really do that anymore. But I like to walk and observe nature. And as an example of that, even when I'm not walking, my room here in my current house, which I can credit my wife for the main overall design of, but I insisted I wanted to have a laboratory. I'm supposed to be a physicist, right? So even in retirement, I wanted to have a place I could do that. But I also, unlike most men, I didn't want a man cave. I'm not a cave dweller. So I can look out to my window, and I have bird feeders set up in the winter. So even just sitting here in my laboratory, as I call it for the highfalutin term for the sake of the grandkids, I can look out and see the birds feasting on the various offerings. And that's an example of how I just like to see what's going on in nature. So I'd say that's my main interest. And
well, thank you, Dan. Thank you for sharing that interest with me, and with all of us. I think there's probably quite a few attendees today that probably also have a strong affinity for the outdoors. I think that bird watching is actually a very interesting activity. If I had a better pair of binoculars, I might take it up myself. I'm going to keep moving. I'll probably make these a little bit more rapid fire because I want to try to get to everybody if I can. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jim Anglin, who is our Area 23 competitor. Jim, you belong to at least one club that I know of in Area 23, our Conic Club, I believe.
That's correct.
And for that club, do you hold or have you held any offices previously?
Yes, I've been a member for quite a few years. And so I've currently got the position of treasurer, but I've been president, I believe, 5 different times over my membership in the club. And I think I've held all the other positions except maybe sergeant at arms, which sometimes goes unfilled.
Well, that's pretty, that's very, very good to know. I really like hearing that so many of our contestants are very much involved in the leadership of their clubs, always very encouraging and always interesting to see who's done what position. And some people have collected positions like so many. Some people have done everything. And then some people are just starting out with one position. And I just love seeing the differences between what they've done and experienced. And same question to you, Jim. Do you have any interests or hobbies that are important to you that you'd like to share with us today?
I think the main one would be outdoor activities.
Oh, good.
I tend to like to be competitive, and I translate that into the activities that I like. So I spend a lot of time on my bicycles and still have managed to survive doing cyclocross racing in the fall, which is kind of a little bit rough and tumble on off-road type scenarios. So I have a talk that I'm planning to give on that shortly, but bicycling and unfortunately not much this winter skiing.
Yes, yes, I've heard that the slopes are not very favorable for skiing. Someone I know, I won't name them for the sake of privacy. Someone I know actually got injured because they were skiing on a slope where the slope wasn't managed well enough, and the snow was scarce. And yes, they actually took a pretty nasty tumble as a result. So definitely something I've been hearing a lot of this year. And hopefully next year will be better for people that like to ski. And so again, I'm going to try to keep it moving. If I can come back around and ask more questions, I will. So I'm going to turn it over to our distinguished Toastmaster, Patty Thor, who is a member of at least one club that I know of, Penn State Pingers. But are you a member of any other clubs in Area 20, in Area 22, Area 23, or other neighboring areas?
I'm not. I'm only in one club. I have been in 4 clubs at one time: the Achievers Advanced Club and every other club that's been in Area 22 at some point. I was a member of Nittany for, I think it was 8 years. So
wow.
It was a long time.
There's
but
actually
now just one.
Just one. And that's good.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that, because sometimes it's good to have a little bit of to have quality over quantity. And Penn State Pingers is definitely a quality club. All of us have quality clubs, but I want to definitely spotlight Penn State Pingers as a fine example of a quality club.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
8 years in a row.
Don't take
8
that
years in a
personally.
row of President's Distinguished.
And
8 years in a
so
row.
I've been informed that we have our contestant results, but I'm just going to really quick so that I can get, I want everybody to speak. I'm going to just do a really quick run through of for Sterling Garcia. He was competing with us today in our table topics contest. An interesting thing that I know about Sterling is he is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. Is that correct, Sterling?
That's correct, Carly. Very proud of my service. Served for 5 years from 1996 to 2001.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sterling. And thank you for your service. And then who am I missing? Michael Stewart. We got a lot of people named Mike. Mike is the current president of Nittany Toastmasters. He has, Mike, you have, if really quick, because we're almost out of time. You have some very adorable animals that currently share your home with you. Would you like to tell us very quick the name of that adorable animal and just your favorite thing about them, Mike?
Sure. So I actually have 2 cats now. I have Timber, which was the subject of my international speech in 2020, I believe. He loves to jump up on counters, and we were very adamant that he should not do that. And there was some Tom and Jerry type theatrics that we went through to prevent him from trying to jump up on the counters. We've recently adopted another cat. Her name is Leela. We got her from a local animal shelter, and she's just a ball of happiness and just loves being pet and is very sociable.
Thank you so much, Mike. All right. Is there any other competitors that I missed that just wanna say anything before we move on to announcing our winners? Oh, yes, Bill, I'm sorry. That's right. I knew I missed somebody. So again, before we move on, because I don't want to leave anybody out, even if we run a little bit over time. So please bear with me. Bill Goff competed with us, competed today. He gave us a phenomenal speech, a surprising lesson, which was actually very poignant and emotional. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that with us.
Welcome.
Bill is also a member of the State College Club. Bill, before we move on, are you a member of any other Toastmasters clubs in Area 22?
I am not. I should do that at some point. I see many people do, like Patty and others, and I should branch out. I've actually never been to another club's Toastmasters meeting even.
Yes, please do. There are 4 clubs in Area 22, and we would love to see you there. Also hoping that we can get even more clubs in Area 22, but that'll be something that'll happen maybe down the road a bit, but hoping to be able to have even more clubs for people to choose from and frequent, including advanced ones. So again, before we move on, I'm going to give you a little bit more information about Bill, which I think is really interesting. His notable accomplishments. This is from his competitor profile. He has traveled to all 50 states. Imagine that. Amazing. You gotta give him a round of applause for that. That's so cool. He has basically done the equivalent of living the Johnny Cash song, I've Been Everywhere, if you're familiar with that one. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that, because I think that's really cool.
Well, thank you.
And if there's anything else you'd like to share with us, Bill, before we announce our winners, please feel free. And again, I'm sorry that I can't do more in-depth discussion with everybody so that we can keep the contest to a minimum length. We're already over.
That's fine. Yes. I'm fine to move on.
Okay, Bill, thank you so much. And again, please feel free to join us at Nittany Toastmasters and or any of our other area clubs or Area 22 clubs. I mean, oh gosh, Area 23 clubs. Let's see. Now it's time for the moment that you've all been waiting for. That's actually what I'm supposed to say as well. I just ad-libbed that. Great. The moment you've all been waiting for, the announcement of the winners. We will begin with Area 23 and our competitor, Jim Anglin. Jim, I am honored to announce that you have placed first in the Area 23 Table Topics contest. Everybody give a round of applause to Jim. Yeah, awesome. And then it is also my privilege to announce that, Jim, you are also the first placed winner in the International Speech Contest. And you will now be advancing to your division contest. Everybody give it up for Jim. This is a huge accomplishment. What this means is that Jim successfully gave both his speech and his table topics contest back to back with no violations of timing or otherwise. This is a phenomenal accomplishment. I hope you're very proud, Jim. I hope your club of origin is very proud of you and that your area is very proud of you. They will be well served having you representing them in the next level of these contests. So again, congratulations. I will be sending you your certificates of award for first place, and you will also receive a certificate of participation for both the table topics and the international speech that you gave. So that was our Area 23 contest. We'll now move on to giving out to the awards for Area 22. In first place for the Area 22 table topics, our first place winner.
Carly.
Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
You're not awarding third and second place today?
Wait.
You need to announce that in reverse order, please. Thank you so much.
Oh, in reverse order. So starting from the,
Starting with the
left.
third place, second place, and first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Jing. I apologize. I should have remembered that from the previous contest. That's fine. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Jen. Let me just recalibrating. Please hold. Okay. For our Area 22 Table Topics winners, third place, Michael Stewart. Let's give him a hand. Third place, Table Topics winner. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. And then we can also give a big round of applause after I announce everybody for Table Topics too. But more clapping is always good. Second place, Area 22 Table Topics will be Patty Thor. Patty Thor. Give it up for Patty. Great table topic. And now for real this time, the first place winner for our Area 22 Table Topics contest is Sterling Garcia. Yeah! Woo! Go Sterling! Yes. Big accomplishment. Table topics are hard. Improving is hard. You have to give that gotta give that a lot of respect. That is very impressive. But I'm gonna keep it moving because we gotta find out who our international speech contest winners are. In third place for the Area 22 International Speech Contest is Bill Goff. Let's give it up. Yeah. Way to go, Bill. Second place for the Area 22 International Speech Contest is Michael Stewart. Yeah, let's go. Awesome. Way to go, Mike. And finally, and now last, but certainly not least, this is a big one. Our first place winner for the Area 22 International Speech Contest is Distinguished Toastmaster Patty Thor. All of you will be receiving certificates of award for first, second, and third place. And then, Jing, correct me if I'm wrong, our first and second, the first and second place winners from both contests will be the ones advancing to the district. I mean, division. I'm skipping over Nick's contest again. I'm sorry. I keep doing it. Just keeps happening. So I'm very, very honored to announce that we will, for Area 22, those that will be advancing to represent us in Area 22 Table Topics will be Sterling Garcia and Michael Stewart. Woo! And then for the International Speech Contest representing Area 22, moving on to the division contest. In this case, it'll be Division C. That's ours. Area 22, Division C, will be Patty Thor and Michael Stewart. Let's give all of these amazing contestants a round of applause.
I'm confused.
Harley?
What place did I finish in Table Topics?
Okay, wait, I got it. I'm sorry. I'm reading this off of.
Yes, the first and second place contestant.
First and second place. Second place in Table Topics, Patty, you came in second. Sterling came in first in Area 22 Table Topics. Do I have those placings correct? We are not leaving this meeting until we make sure that everybody's placings are correct. All good? Are we okay?
We're good.
Okay, good. That is very, very important. As I said, everyone who participated in this contest will receive certificates of participation. And then our first through third place winners in all of our contests will receive participation certificates for all those contests. We can see what else we have. Okay. Again, congratulations to all our winners and contestants today. As again, one more time, just in case, just to be a broken record about it, the first and second place winners will now advance for Area 22. Area 22 will advance to compete at the Division C contest on March 11, 2023. I believe that the contest for Area 23 is Division B.
Carly, both of the area contests today will go to the Division C.
Why? I'm sorry. I don't know why I don't know.
And if I may have a couple of minutes, I would appreciate it.
I'm sorry, what?
If I may have a minute or two to speak, I
Yes,
would appreciate it.
yes, of course. And just ignore what I'm saying. I don't know why I'm like this, as the kids say sometimes. I have something right in front of me and I still look at the wrong thing anyway. Jing, would you like to take a few minutes right now to speak? Or should I do my recognition of volunteers, introduction of dignitaries? What would you like?
Whatever you would like.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make sure that I give Jing a couple minutes to speak. But first, I will take this time to introduce any dignitaries in attendance. In particular, we have Jing Humphreys today in attendance. She is the District 13 Club Quality Director. Do I have that title right?
Program Quality Director.
Why did I say C? I'm so sorry. I'm really falling apart here. Really falling apart here at the end. That's okay. The important part, the important part was done. We have our contestant winners, and that's all that really matters. The club quality director, and she will be taking a few minutes to speak to us after I finish the rest of my announcements. Do we have any other visiting dignitaries? It was a little bit hectic this morning, so I didn't really get to touch base to see if we had any other leadership attending today. Do we have anybody else that I should be announcing? Okay. If we don't have any other visiting dignitaries that I need to address, I'm going to now move on to the portion where I recognize our contest volunteers. I would like to recognize and give many heartfelt thanks to our contest volunteer team. We really had to work in order to get good coverage for this contest. We did have some volunteer attrition, but thanks to all of you, we were able to successfully pivot and to get this and to have this contest and support our competitors to the best of our ability. And I would not have been able to do that. I would have just crashed and burned if it wasn't for you. Our chief judge was Mike LaQuasto from Area 22 Pingers Club. Everybody please give him a round of applause. He was instrumental in the coordinating of this contest, in making sure that contestants received the appropriate forms, helping me coordinate the collaboration between Area 23 and Area 22, basically everything. If you can name it, Mike was doing it, and I cannot thank him enough for what he did to help this contest be a success. Other people who I owe an incredible amount are our judges. They really came through, and their names are Sharon Henderson from Area 23. She is also the Area 23.
Carly, the judges need to be anonymous. Thank you.
Apologies. I thought that after the contest ended, yes, I understand. Okay. So again, my point still stands. My judges really came through, would not have been able to do this without them. Getting judges is definitely one of the hardest parts of running these contests. So again, all my thanks to them. Question: Am I allowed to acknowledge any other of the volunteers, Jing?
As long as you don't identify the contest officials by name. Thank you.
Okay, well, for the sake of, so some of this information has been publicly available on the agenda, but in the interest of confidentiality, I will not name any additional people, but I will give them large amounts of thanks. A big thanks to our Sergeant at Arms and ballot counter and our Zoom master, who I would not be able again to hold this contest without, and who has been instrumental in making this possible. And then a huge thanks to our other timers and other volunteers. And these volunteers were area wide, but also from Area 23. This contest was achieved by the collaboration between our two areas. And so we had volunteers from both areas coming together to make this possible. And again, huge thank you. I'm going to now turn it over to Jing before I say something else that's wrong and fail at reading, because for some reason it seems like I can't today. Jing, please take it away. Thank you so much.
First of all, I would like for you to unmute yourself and congratulate Carly on a job well done. So please unmute
Great,
yourself.
great
Let's
job,
give
Carly. Excellent job.
And
Good
all
job,
of our
Carly.
judges,
Good job,
all of our contestants and winners.
you.
Let's just take the time right now to celebrate. Congratulations, you did it. And to be two combined contests in one event, this is really great. So I appreciate all of you and thank you so much. The reason I wanted to take the time is because I have in my hand the awards. And so the area contest winner for table topics will be getting this award for first place. And the international speech contestant first place winner will be getting this lovely trophy. You can see they're pretty big. And I will deliver them in person at the division contest. So I will see you there and it will be awarded to you there. So I will bring, because 100% online for the area contest. So I will bring the awards to the in-person division contest. So I hope to see you there so I can congratulate you personally and give you your award in person. But again, thank you for a job well done. Congratulations to the contestants and the winners. You really stepped out of your comfort zone. You need courage to take the next step outside of your club and do this. So congratulations to you and our many volunteers, our many judges and contest officials. I know it feels kind of, you're hidden right now, but you are doing such a great job. And in order to preserve the integrity of the contest all the way to the district level and beyond, we need to do this and follow the rules. So I appreciate all of you and thank you for having me. Back to you, Carly.
Thank you so much, Jing. That means a lot. And I'd also want to thank and acknowledge Jing for being there supporting us, especially this morning, answering our questions and making sure that everything is okay. She's really a credit to her position that she is checking in on all of these contests, of which there are many happening, many of them happening simultaneously, and took the time to make sure that we were okay and that our contest would be able to proceed as scheduled. So please, everybody, make sure that you thank her. If you want to, like Patty just did, post in the chat a message of thanks. Again, thank you so much. And with that, I will hereby officially close the Area 22 and Area 23 contests. We are very over time. I would like to just officially close it so that I can give everybody back their day. It's a nice sunny Saturday, a nice sunny Saturday here, at least where I am, and I hope it's at least somewhat nice where you are too. And a couple of points. So the contest is now officially over, but I will still, if you would just stay online for a little bit, I just want to remind everybody that we do have that the Division C contest is coming up rapidly. It is coming up rapidly, and I want to give a shout out to our division director, Nick Cachetti, We are currently looking for volunteers for that contest. And that contest is going to be held at the Cobblestone Hotel and Suites in Punxsutawney. Yes, in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And yes, we are looking for volunteers. I'm going to be sending out an email again, as I've been doing for this contest, for the area and beyond, just saying, hey, we need more volunteers. It is a hybrid, it's a hybrid contest. So there will be that in-person component, as Jing mentioned, and that hybrid component, and volunteers will be needed for both. So I just want to give some visibility there. I will be sharing out the PowerPoint presentation to everybody who, I will be sharing the PowerPoint presentation out to everybody that was kind of rotating around during our break, so that all of you can see it and you all have that information handy. You don't have to search for it, because that also has the entire schedule of events that I know for District 13, starting out originally with the new year, going all the way to the big Toastmasters conference that's happening in the Caribbean this year, Nassau. It's going to be in an exotic location this year. So more to follow on that. I will send that out to everybody. Let me see, just making sure if I have anything else I need to tell you before you go. I do not think I do. I will send that out to everybody for your convenience. Remember to get your officers trained. We still have a couple of available slots left, and that there's information on that included in the PowerPoint. So with that, and without further ado, I've already officially closed the contest, but I will now stop talking about official things, and thank you all for attending. Congratulations to all of our competitors. Congrats and good luck to everybody who will be advancing to the division contests. We're looking forward to continuing to support you and cheer you on. And again, thank you, everybody. Steve, are you able to stay on? Or are we closing this room?
Have a great day.
Congratulations, Sterling. Happy birthday.
Congratulations, everybody. Oh, and happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Sterling's already gone. It's his birthday today, Sterling.
I'm sorry, Patty. I didn't know. I was saying, oh, who's someone's birthday?
Yeah,
I had no
Sterling's,
idea.
He got a great birthday present.
Okay, do we need to stay, Mike, do we need to stay on to talk about anything, or are we good?
No, we're good. Steve, I sent you the list of emails so you can do the recordings to the people.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Right, thanks all.
See ya.